Good morning, everybody. This is Laura Peterson from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. This is Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm your host here today, and in order to reach us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So lots of great stuff to go over with you today in regards to what's going on. Hope you're having a great weekend. And we're in the middle of July, which is kind of, the middle of summer, basically, is what it is. So nice, hot, humid days and all of that kind of stuff. Many times an afternoon shower, but a great time of year and no hurricanes in the horizon at the moment. So that's always good as well. But I wanted to get into what's going on in the market right now. And basically last week, which was the end of the month, there were 480 homes versus 438 the week before. So always at the end of the month, there's a few more, because what happens is that everybody's got that end of the month. Renters are like, okay, I'm getting out of my rental and I want to close on that same day, and lenders want to get things done by the end of the month and everything. So that's always a big push, basically, to do that. And actually June was the end of the quarter, so at that time there's even more activity usually, especially for the builders and everything, because they want to make sure that their P&L statements look the way that they want them to, and so they push for those properties to get closed before the end of the quarter. And usually if you can do that, or if they're on a different fiscal year status, whatever builder it is, you're going to get maybe a little bit better deals at that time of year, because they want to get things done and make their profit and loss statements look good for the quarter or the year or whatever it might be. So just a little hint there. But anyway, the homes sold in the 4 counties, Osceola, Orange, Seminole, and Lake, were 480 from June 20 to the week of June 29th to July 5th. And the median price of single-family homes increased to $442,000, which it says it's an increase of 5.2%. We were at like 420, I think, the week before, but it's right within that range. We're only looking at a week worth of what's going on, and so it's really not a big difference in regards to what's happening and all of that kind of good stuff. The inventory actually decreased by 73, which I think is awesome news, because we've just kind of been on an increase, kind of thing for the last couple of years. And as a result of that, that has made it a normal market. But, everybody's looking at, okay, are the prices going to go down and everything like that, which we've stayed very consistent for the last couple of years. So it helps with the appraisals, because the appraisers are saying that the markets are stable and they're not going down and everything like that in most cases. And so as a result of that, we're actually finding that things are, obviously pretty stable, and the appraisal is going to go along with what the market is. If the market's going up, the appraisals are lagging behind, and if the market's going down, they're lagging behind a little bit there as well sometimes, but they're kind of more on the hey, we think the market's going down, kind of mode, as opposed to when it's going up, they're not as forgiving and all of that, in my opinion. Now, I could be completely wrong, but that over my 20 years now that I have been selling real estate, that's kind of what I've found out. So basically, when we break down those homes, there were 46 of them that were under 350,000, 27 between 250 and 300, 107 of them are between 300 and 400, 106 between 400 and 500, 158 between 500 and a million, and 36 over a million. So basically, the reason I go through all that is because, the real estate it's like knowing, what's out there. So it's like if you say, hey, I want to buy a house under 250,000, they do exist. It might not be in the neighborhood that you want to be in. It might not be in the condition that you want to find the house in, but they are out there. And there were 46 of them that sold last week. And The list to ask price ratio is staying pretty standard at 97.08. Under 250 this week, it's a little better than most at 96.26. Usually, the under 250, you can get a little bit more negotiating power on them because usually they are homes that need work, and so you've got a little bit of room there. And then all the way across the board, it's in the 97s until we get to the over a million, and that's at 95.33. And again, on the high end and the low end is usually where we find that there is the most room for negotiating. The average days on the market for a single family home is 69 days. And it varies a little bit, going across the board, but they're pretty close all the way around. The longest days on the market are the homes that are between 250 and 300, believe it or not. And that number is at 96 right now. So, it's like I go over these statistics, but basically the bottom line is that everything goes along with what's kind of, happening out there. You've got to look at a long period of time and see kind of what's going on. You've got to know what's out there is possible, but there's definitely room for improvement and things that are obviously happening out there. Now, looking at the condos, townhomes, and villas, I like to break everything down in different statuses. And if I'm working with you, it's going to be by the neighborhood, by the subdivision, by the zip code, all of those kinds of things, because real estate is very local. But this gives us a pretty good idea in regards to what's going on. So there were 122 that sold last week, which was 158 the week before, which is kind of weird that the number of condos went down the last week of the month, but just happened to happen this time. The median value is at 265,000. So 265 for a condo, townhome or villa versus 442 for a single family home. So you might think initially, hey, it's budgetary and all of that kind of good stuff, that you're better off with the condo, and you may be, but you just have to look at all the fees and everything involved in order to figure that out. Now, the condo inventory also decreased by 132, and that's looking at 4,474. So looking how everything breaks down when it comes to the condos, townhomes, and villas, of those 122, 56 of them were under 250. There were 12 between 250 and 300, 32 between 300 and 400, 16 between 400 and 500, 5 between 500 and a million, and one of them over a million. So when you're looking at the months of inventory here on the condos, townhomes, and villas, we're at 8.46. And I don't think I gave the number on the single family homes, but I'm going to do that right now. And they're at 4.51. So you can see right there the difference of why it really makes a big difference to really know what you're looking at and comparing just that local thing that you're looking at. Because if you just look at the condos, townhomes, and villas, just the months of inventory of 8.46 versus 4 on the single family homes, you can see that there's probably more. You would think there would be more price elasticity in the condos, townhomes, and villas. And basically, the list to ask price ratio is at 96.92, so not a whole lot different. But basically, there are a lot more, double the months of inventory, which makes that a buyer's market. So you would think there would be a lot more negotiation on there. There definitely isn't. They are longer days on the market when it comes to a condo, townhome, and villa. And you really need to know that you're pricing your property correctly in any of these situations, but especially in a condo, townhome, and villa. I know I was working with somebody and recently, and we were looking at it, and they were wondering, why. What was going on and all of that kind of good stuff. And basically, when it comes down to it, there are definitely people that are buying those condos, but they're definitely looking very hard at it. And if your condo is one of 20 that's available in that particular subdivision, which I don't mean subdivision, but condo development, then basically what's going to happen is that you have got to make sure that your property stands out. I mean, above all. And basically you've got to make it so good that somebody wants to come in and see it. And the number one way of starting that out is obviously with the price. And then it goes to the pictures and it goes to the way that it's presented and all of that kind of thing. Because many times in a condo development, the units are very similar. There might be different upgrades, and those upgrades are definitely going to make your unit stand out, but it's not going to make it stand out 10, 20, 30,000 more than the other units usually. So you have to be really careful in regards to what you're doing and all of that. And flippers have to be very careful when they're buying a property, fixing it up and doing something, that they're making sure that they're not, over improving or doing something that they're not going to get their money out of, because it's not necessarily going to help their cause. So in order to get in touch with us, you want to call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we will see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. This is Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So last segment, I spent a lot of time going over the stats in regards to what's going on in the market, and I think it gives you a really good idea when we're looking at them from week to week, what's going on, because we're definitely on top of if the market's changing, if it's going up, if it's going down, if it's staying consistent. And, I get people all the time, well, it's going to fall and all of that kind of good stuff. And I'm like, well, it looks like it's pretty consistent to me. And the inventory, yes, has grown, but we've just grown in single family homes to a normal market, which we're at 4.6, I believe I said. And, between 4 and 6 months is a normal market. So we're just really at the beginning of a normal market in regards to what's going on with the single family homes. Now, in the condo market and townhomes, we're in a buyer's market for sure. And we don't necessarily see the prices, falling, but it's a bigger probability that they're going to fall in the condo market than it is that they're going to fall in the single family home market. So it's just something that I always am keeping an eye on and that you need to know, because it's really important in regards to when you're making your decision. If you're going to stay in your house for a long time and you're looking at where you're at now and where you're going to go to, and maybe you're going, okay, my interest or rate is a little bit higher than where I'm at right now, but I'm going to have the house that my family can grow into, or you're downsizing or something like that, you can always find that property now. And now is a good time to do it because you do have more choices. If it was a couple of years ago and you wanted to buy a house, the interest rates were great. But the problem is that, the inventory was very, it was very short. I mean, we had a half a month of inventory. And so as a result of that, what happened is that, if a house came on the market, you would get 10, 15, 20 offers on it right away. All of them, not all of them, but many of them above asking, many of them that didn't have an appraisal clause, many of them that were cash. And it was very difficult for a buyer that needed closing costs, that needed, a little help to get the deal done. And, somebody that was going to do financing in order to even be competitive to find a house, and then you just settled. Many people did. Thankfully, I didn't have anybody that had to settle. We were very diligent and went after what we needed, and so we got what we needed, and I didn't have anybody that was unhappy with their purchase. But basically, the bottom line is that the studies came out later that said that 80% of the people were unhappy with their purchase. So my opinion is that when you feel like it's time, which may be now, or if you had your choice that you would be in a home versus renting, I would say do it now, because you might be struggling. First of all, they're not going to allow you to spend the money that you don't have in order to buy the house. The lenders have very strict guidelines to make sure that you can afford the property and you're not going to get in trouble with it. Back in 2008, when everything fell apart, that was not the case. You could pretty much just state what you had going on in your finances, and they would say, okay, that sounds good. Let's go ahead and write up a loan, and you would get it. And hey, let's just take 10 properties right now and take those. I don't have any renters or anything for them, but I'm going to be able to buy all those properties. So people did that all the time, and they were able to, get the loan. It's like it was explained to me that the loan package went from being 2 pages or a quarter of an inch thick at the best to being, 2 inches because of all of the stuff that they went through in regards to finding out if people could actually afford a home and anything back from 2008. And so basically now they're not going to allow you to get into a property that you can't be in. So that's my point. Secondly, when the interest rates go down a little bit, which they may or may not, we are kind of at the average rate of what it is over time. I do anticipate that I think it's going to go down to probably in the 5 range. And when it does that, all of the analysts say that when the interest rates are at 5, the market's just going to kind of go wacko again, meaning that it's going to be like hotcakes. And first of all, and second of all, that people are going to want to definitely go to that next level when it comes to, purchasing a home. And so the inventory could go down, and then you don't have any choices again, and you can't get the seller concessions and all of that. Whereas if you're already in the home, all you have to do is refinance, and you've got the new rate, you're in the home that you want. And so it only makes sense. So that's just my 2 cents on that, but I think that it does make sense that when the time is right and you feel like it, that you do it. When I bought my first house, which I'm obviously going to be dating myself, but basically when I bought it, it was back in the 80s. And, basically the late 80s, and the interest rates were at 17%, I think it was, or something like that. And I was so happy to get an assumable loan. And so I was able to get it down to 11%. And so, and it worked out. It was fine. It worked out great and all of that kind of good stuff. And, so it's like people think, wow, interest rates were really that high. Yeah, they really were that high. I think they peaked it at like 20 something percent, I think I heard, which is absolutely an insane rate for a house. But basically, when it comes down to it, you can always refinance and make things happen that way. So one more thing that I wanted to get into right now, well, I've got quite a few things, but the thing that I want to talk about right now is a program that we have here in Florida that's called the My Safe Florida Home. And as of July 1st, it just got new funding that was infused into it. And it's called, again, My Safe Florida Home Program. And basically, if you want to look it up online, which I suggest that you do, it's mysafeflhome.com. Again, that's mysafeflhome.com. So what this is, it's a $280 million infusion of funding is new opportunities to take advantage of with the program. So basically, there is eligibility criteria, and the purpose of this My Safe Florida Home is that it provides eligible Florida homeowners with matching hurricane mitigation grants to help fund specific home improvements that are recommended by the program's initial inspection. And so these improvements are aimed at strengthening homes against hurricanes and offering potential discounts on home insurance premiums. So basically, it'll provide eligible Florida homeowners free of charge with no obligation a hurricane mitigation inspection that identifies the current hurricane-resistant features. So here's some of the criteria of what you need to do. First of all, your home must be a single-family, detached residential property or townhouse. Your home must be site-built and owner-occupied. So it can't be a modular home that they brought in there. And you must have been granted a homestead exemption on the home. And then, so that's basically what happens. So then you get a free inspection and you meet the income eligibility requirements of the program. You have the opportunity to apply for a hurricane mitigation grant. So eligibility requirements to apply for a grant through the programs is that you must have received an initial inspection. Then your home must be at an insured value of $700,000 or less. The building permit application for initial construction of the home must have been before January 1st, 2008. The homeowner must provide the name and license number of the contractor selected to perform the mitigation project, and then you must agree to make the home available for a final inspection once the project is complete. And then you must agree to provide the program any and all information received from the homeowner's insurance identifying the discounts realized by the homeowner because of improvements funded through the program. So what this does is, so you have this free inspection, okay? And then the next thing that happens on it is that you get a grant approved prior to proceeding with the construction work, and 2/3 of the total construction project up to the maximum state contribution of $10,000 subject to legislative appropriation will come to you. So if you have something that you need to do to help with your house to make it better hurricane-wise, then this is something that the state will give up to $10,000. And if you're low-income homeowners who meet all other hurricane mitigation grant requirements are eligible for a grant of up to $10,000, and it doesn't have to have any matching. So this is really a great program, and I'm sure a lot of you qualify for it, so why not check it out? Again, it's mysafeflhome.com. So they'll give you a free inspection, and then you can have some matching money up to $10,000 that they'll give you. And so, it's all good. So I think that's a great thing to check out. So in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we will see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So I found this legal article, and it's a real estate question and answer. Can I end joint ownership? And it's answered by Gary M. Singer. And the question was, in shared ownership, as a single mom, I bought my house with my son about a decade ago. We used both incomes to qualify for the mortgage and split the costs. A few years later, he began a relationship, and his significant other moved in. Eventually, I met someone, and we want to buy a house. The problem is we can't qualify for the loan because I have the existing mortgage on my credit, and my son wants to stay put. I don't know what to do. Please help. So you have options, and you have several things in your favor is the answer. First, it seems like everything is getting along and trying to work through this together. The legal system does have solutions for this quandary if you cannot work through it, but like most legal disputes, it would be expensive and time-consuming and is best avoided if possible. And this being said, you both might have to make some compromises. Over the last decade, the value of the houses have increased significantly, and the equity means that your son can refinance the loan, perhaps with a significant other, and use some of the equity to buy you out, and that would free up your credit and help you with the down payment on your new home. The downside is that the new loan might have higher interest rates, making the monthly payments higher for the son, and additionally, they'll have to carry the housing expenses without your help. If your son's income cannot support the existing house, even with the help of the significant other, the other option will be selling the existing home and split the equity. He should be able to use the funds he receives towards a more affordable home, and you can do the same with your new significant other. I understand these options are not ideal, and your son will not want to pay more for the same house or downsize, but it's better than the alternative. When a property has multiple owners and one wants out, the person can go to court and force the other to buy them out or have the property sold in a partition lawsuit. Since the selling the property or buying you out is inevitable, it's better to get it done yourselves, saving the distress and expense of a lawsuit just to end up in the same place. So basically, it comes down to that you can do it, and I know I've talked about this before, that a lot of times there are agreements up front, but circumstances change, life happens, all those kinds of good things. Good things are happening for both of these people. They both have new people in their life and want to move on, and so it just comes down to really making it so it's a win-win situation for everybody and working it out. And so, when you're going into these types of situations, you might want to, work it out at the beginning, but, there's ways to work it out at the end. And the same kind of situation happens many times in a divorce, because one person wants to stay in the house, the other one wants to go. And I've dealt with people that just kept it kind of the same, that they said, okay, well, you go ahead and you make the payment and I'll move out and do my own thing and all of that kind of good stuff. And then it doesn't usually end well, because the divorce has been final and you still have that house hanging over you. And the person who's been making the payments, then when it goes to sell it, the other one's still going to get 50% equity. And if it went up, that's a problem. If that person was making the payments and they feel like they should get that extra equity, they do it. Or if it goes the other direction, there's just a lot of mess that you don't want to deal with. So what I have found over the years is that I think that it's much better for people to actually go ahead and buy the other one out, or work that out now, or both people move, unfortunately, because it definitely needs to be done, that it's all clean and green and ready to go. I was talking to a mortgage lender last week, and she was telling me actually about her daughter, who had just recently gotten a divorce, and she stayed with the home, and the husband got a new home, and she said she did the loan for the daughter refinancing it, and she did the loan for the husband buying the new house. And they came to her and they said that that's what they were going to do, is because it was amicable, and they said that they were just going to go ahead and continue, both of them owning the house and all of that kind of stuff. And she said, oh no, we're not going to do that. We're going to make sure that at this point in time, we're going to make it clean and everything like that, so that you can move on in the future and not have this hanging over your head. Because it can be, if the market goes up, it can be a problem, because the person who stayed in the house and was making the payments is going to be going, hey, I should have gotten more equity because I've been the one in the house, and the one who left, hey, legally I own half the house and should get the equity. So you can see both sides, and you go to court, and it's going to end up, whatever the judge or the jury, probably the judge decides, and all of that kind of good stuff. And so, you don't know where it's going to end up. So when you're in control, and when you can actually do it, and you're thinking clearly at that time, and you're making that break, it's better to make that break clean all the way across the board. And I've seen it time and time again, where something that didn't have to be ugly becomes ugly, and that's the last thing that you want to do. So I strongly recommend that everybody does go ahead and they do what they need to do in order to make things happen, in regards to all of that. So that is my 2 cents when it comes to that if you do go into a joint ownership, even with your kids, or something like that, or you are going through the divorce process, it does make a lot of sense to clean everything up right now and not have everything leaning on for the future. Because even if you've got kids involved and all of that kind of good stuff, to make sure that long term you can get along better, and you're not going to have a fight 5 or 10 years from now when somebody wants to sell the house and it's up in the air in regards to what everything's going to happen, and somebody's feeling like they were gypped and all of that kind of good stuff because of a decision that you made 5 years ago. So in my opinion, what I've seen over the years is it's best to just go ahead and take care of everything now while you can, and make the best of perhaps bad situation, or maybe it's a good situation like we talked about here, that it was a mother and son, and both of them have found people that they want to buy houses with instead of staying in that same house of where they're at right now. So it's just really important, I think, that communication is key, but working through everything when you can and just getting it over, even if it's a messy divorce, which unfortunately we've seen quite a few of those. And basically, what's best is for everybody to take the hit now, go through all the pain now, and then not have to deal with it again. It's like ripping that Band-Aid off slow or fast. And when it comes to this kind of a thing, you don't want it going on for another 5 or 10 years. You'd rather, take care of it now and make sure that everything is, the way that it needs to be, and then move on. And maybe it isn't the ideal situation, but it's better to start over than to be hanging on, in my opinion. But, that's the way it is. So in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we'll see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Laura Peterson, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So I wanted to, I've got some kind of fun and interesting articles and stuff to go over for the rest of the show. And this one, it says, if you're an investor or if you've got apartments out there, you want to say yes to the pet. Renters with pets are on the rise, and the new research shows that listings that welcome them rent at least 8 days faster. So in the United States, the share of pet-friendly rental listings is 57% overall, and it goes 8 days faster. In Miami, it's 51% of the listings allow pets, and they go 9 days faster. In Tampa, 71% of the listings allow pets, and they go 16 days faster. So that's huge. In Orlando, it's 67% allow pets, and it's only 2 days faster in Orlando. And then Jacksonville is 71% allow pets, and they go 8 days faster. So Orlando actually is the lowest, but probably depends because of the number, of rental properties and that kind of thing that's out there. So I found that was very interesting, that it helps you as a landlord lease faster in doing that. And I have a few landlords that I work with that basically what they do is they just make sure that it's a pet-friendly house, meaning that they don't have any carpet in it, and I've seen a lot of rental listings that do this now, is that what they do is that if you have a pet, they have a pet deposit, which many people are aware of and familiar with. But then the next thing that they have is they have an additional pet per month fee, which I thought was very interesting, but obviously they're getting it and people are willing to pay it. And it can be like $50 more a month, so $600 more a year for having a pet. And I've seen some that are even a little bit higher. So very interesting. So in addition to the pet deposit, you've got like an extra pet fee for having it in there. But in the landlord's defense, I have also seen cases where people have, big dogs or something like that, and they completely destroy, many things within the house. Like, for example, around the moldings, if they're trying to get out and they're scratching it, and you got to put a new door in, and you've got to do all that kind of stuff. $600 is not going to cover all of the damage that can be done by a pet. So it's, I don't think that I've seen this yet, but it's probably on the horizon and might not be a bad thing to do, is to kind of evaluate the pets in regards to, asking an old landlord in regards to, just like you have a credit check for the people, maybe you have a pet check to see if the pet has done any damage. But I'm not sure how all that would work, but just a thought out there. Somebody might come up with a whole new solution and make a whole business out of that. Might have given you a great idea right there. Another thing that I found that I thought was very interesting was that investor buying is growing the share of U.S. homes. So investors purchased 265,000 homes in the January to March quarter, and that's an increase of 1.2% from the same period a year earlier, a new report found. So the interesting thing, so that's 27% of all homes sold in the first 3 months of the year were bought by investors. And that's the highest share in the last 5 years. And average, it's been about 18.5%. So that's interesting in regards to what's happening now. Looking at the investors, there's multiple kinds of investors that that are buying out there and stuff like that. The mom and pop investors are those that own between 1 and 5 homes, account for 85% of all investor-owned residential properties, with those between 6 and 10 another 5%. So that's 90% are the mom and pop investors that are out there. So that's the average guy like you and I that are going out there and buying houses are the biggest investors that are out there. Some people are buying them to flip them, and then some people are buying and holding and using it as an investment for the appreciation and also for the rental income to pay off the debts and all of that kind of good stuff. So there's multiple opportunities and everything out there for you. The institutional investors that own 1,000 or more homes only accounts for 2.2% of all investor-owned homes. And that's basically it. And they think that the number could get smaller, that in large institutional investors are scaling back on home purchases. Now, they have done that here in our area, the large investors that, for example, I had a lady that wanted to take one of these investor offers, and they had everything and they had agreed on the price and everything like that. And then they came back and they said, no, there's too much inventory, too much on the market there in that area, so we're not going to do it anymore. And so you do see some of that going on, and that's a result of the inventory. So just like I talked about at the beginning of the show, the fact that basically that the inventory decreased only by less than 100, but I think it was like 70 or something like that, is a good thing if it goes down a little bit. We're at a normal market when it comes to the single family homes, but condos are a different story. And so that's kind of what the scoop is with that. So if you want to be an investor, you could join the 90% of the mom and pop investors out there that are buying a lot of inventory, and 265,000 nationwide. I don't know what it was in our area, but that's what it was nationwide. Now, this I thought was absolutely fascinating, what I found here, and it was that the census shows a big age gaps across Florida counties. So basically, back in the day, and even now a little bit, they say Florida is where everybody goes to retire, and, so the age of Florida is really old and all of that kind of good stuff. But we do have one of the nation's highest median ages, but 22 counties saw a drop in median age since 2020, showing wide age variation across the state. Now, if you were guessing, what state would you guess would have the lowest, age? And it kind of surprised me, but it is Utah has the lowest median age in the country. And that is basically 32.4 is the median age in Utah. In Florida, our median age, let me see what that is. All right. Okay, I'm going to go back here and look at this. I apologize. But basically, Utah is changing. They aged a year in the last 10 years, so they did pretty good on that. But basically, when you're looking, Maine is the nation's oldest state, and its median age is 44.8. So that's even older than Florida. So that was interesting. And then some states with older median ages have pockets of younger population. So after Maine, then you come to Vermont, which is 43.6, New Hampshire, 43.6, West Virginia, 43.0, and the overall median age is 39.1. And again, I'm still looking for the Florida one, which I know that. So Florida does have the home to the nation's oldest county, which is Sumter County, with a median age of 68.1. And it's obviously one of the 3 Florida counties that houses the villages. And so the youngest county is 20.9, and that was Madison County in Idaho, where Brigham Young University Idaho is located. So isn't that interesting where the universities are? It's down quite a bit. And then basically, Florida features one of the largest median age gaps in Mountain County. Its youngest county, Leon County, is home to several counties and universities, which contributed to its median age of 32.6. And 22 of our 67 counties decreased from 20 to 24. So I still don't see what Florida's median age is, unfortunately, on here. So I apologize for that. So I don't see what we are. I know we're fifth. So somewhere we are underneath, because 4 was West Virginia at 43.0, and we are above the median age, which is 39.1. So we're somewhere in the middle there. But basically, you know, so it only makes sense, right? If you've got a college in your area, then that's going to obviously drive down the age of the population and all of that kind of good stuff. And we aren't the oldest. Maine and those Northwest states are kind of all above us, which I thought that was very interesting as well. So all my time is up for today. It's been great talking to you. And if you'd like to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we'll see you next week. Have a great one, everybody. Bye-bye.